As I told you earlier, the Naira ranked as one of the worst performing currencies in Sub-Saharan Africa in 2024 with a year-to-date depreciation of 43%, according to the World Bank's Africa Pulse report. Contributing factors include surging demand for US dollars, limited dollar inflows, and slow disbursements by Nigeria's central bank. And despite foreign exchange reforms, the Naira's decline has exacerbated inflation, raising the prices of imported goods and straining consumers. However, as of October 2024, the Naira saw a brief appreciation of 5.69% against the dollar, though foreign exchange turnover dropped significantly. Now, the World Bank projects modest GDP growth for Nigeria at 3.3% in 2024, accelerating to about possibly 3.6% between 2025 and 2026. Now, this morning, Oladipo Ajayi, head Fixed Income and FX, Chapel Hill Denham Securities Limited, joins me to talk more about this. It's nice to have you around, Oladipo, on the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me this morning.
All right, you're welcome. Now, let's start this way. When the current administration actually harmonized the foreign exchange rates, floated the Naira, of course, we began to see, an accelerated decline in the value of the Naira. And a lot of Nigerians actually don't even know or have an understanding of why the Nigerian government even, floated the Naira in the first place. So let's start by understanding why, before we now begin to look at, the aftermath or the outfalls of this, and probably, why other reforms of government have not really helped in stemming that fall.
Well, thank you very much. One of the reasons why the government actually harmonized the FX windows, I won't say float Naira because it's more like a managed floating system. So what they were trying to do was, before then, we have the parallel market trading at 750 Naira to $8, and we have the official window trading at 450 Naira to $8. We're seeing a situation whereby it's becoming very difficult for manufacturers to get allocation at the official window. So everyone is now resorting to the parallel market to actually get, or parallel or autonomous market to get their demand filled. But we consistently see central bank come to the market, allocate to segments of people. And so it simply means that you get to a level where some people are getting this one at 450. We are not seeing the full impact in the market. And so at that particular point in time, there's this school of thought that, of course, if I buy FX at 450, why do I need to use the FX to do business when I can go to the parallel market to just sell off? And that's one of the things that actually necessitates the harmonization of the windows. So harmonizing the window will give everybody equal chance. Harmonizing the window will be free market to everyone. So it won't be that some segment of people are getting FX at a ridiculously low price, where some are actually getting at market price. So that actually led to the decision of the government to say, oh, we are actually going to actually harmonize all the FX window. And the end goal was, after the harmonization of the windows, it means that the price will be almost the same at any of these windows. So it simply means that whether you are buying from parallel market or at the official window, the margin between each of this market will be very minimal. So it will not be enough for anyone to actually perpetrate any round-tripping transaction. And that's one of the reasons why the government actually told that line. So as another thing also is that harmonizing the window is to actually attract inflow of FX into our market. Because a lot of foreign investors were reluctant to actually graze our market, and because why would I come into your market at official rate of 450 when I know that the fair value is around 750? So it simply means that coming to the market already, I'm already taking FX loss of close to about 60% at that particular point in time. So we actually made a lot of foreign investors stay at the doorstep, waiting for when Nigeria will actually make that bold decision to actually harmonize the FX window, and that's exactly what happened at that particular point in time.
But then this policy has not really helped multinational companies. A couple of these companies have actually closed shops, citing the disparity, that large gap in between the Naira and the dollar. So how does it favor investors when we add, multinational companies who are to exit the Nigerian economy?
So let me now. I just explained the reason that actually led to that. I'll now explain the offshoot aftermath. So after the windows were actually analyzed, the expected result was to actually get attract foreign inflow. And to be realistic, immediately that was done, for like 2 months, we saw more like harmonized window where the parallel market and the official market was almost trading at par. And at that particular point in time, there's no benefit for buying at the official or buying at the parallel market.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why the government told
Oladipo, sorry, I had to butt in here. All right, we need to quickly go on a very short break, so you can hold your thoughts right there. When we return, you give us your response. All right, we're going on a very short break on Business Edge. We'll be back in a bit. Of course, you're watching Business Edge on News Central Television. So, Oladipo, I'm just going to take you on 2 or 3 things before we move to the next conversation. Quickly, what's your thoughts as regards what the Nigerian government is doing to tackle food insecurity before we now go back to the story around the depreciation of the Naira?
Well, for me, I think the Nigerian government is not doing enough because there are many things that is pointing to that fact. Firstly, insecurity is actually number one on the case because farmers are finding it very difficult to actually access and also there's issue of infrastructural deficit as well, and that has been another monster that has been affecting food supply. And don't also forget that also finance and also seedling is also another factor. Because the quality of the seeds that some of our farmers are actually planting cannot be compared to what we see in other parts of the world, and that's as a result has reduced the level of produce that actually come aftermath their hard labor. So I think the government has a lot to do in this regard. I was already thinking there would have been a forum where the government is actually dealing with most of these things, finding a way, the most especially the agricultural ministry, also looking around that, improving the quality of seedling that farmers are actually using, ensuring that funds are available to farmers, ensuring that there's security to farmers. All these are some of the things that the government also needs to do. And also, there's also the issue of flood. Of course, that one is more like a natural disaster. But we don't need to be reactive when some of these things happen. We need to be proactive. Some of these things don't just happen. We know that sometimes you have an inkling of some of these, that some of the incidents will actually occur. I remember the one we saw recently, in September, we saw another one of the same thing around September last year that happened in Jigawa. So it means that we already have that view that around the same time, maybe August, September, you tend to have some of these issues actually happening. So what are you doing as government to actually ensure that farmers are not heavily affected? And you have to find a way where they actually need to actually treat their farming season to ensure that they don't actually suffer heavy loss as a result of some of these natural disasters. So I feel that the government is not doing enough in this regard, and I think they need to up their game.
Okay. So let's now go back to the talk around the Naira. You were sharing your thoughts as regards how this policy, that is the harmonization of the FX, seem to favor investors. But then we have seen the adverse effect on the part of how it has affected businesses in Nigeria. Like I said, the multinational companies closing shop, saying that, you see, that lacuna in between the value of the Naira and the dollar is actually killing their profit and killing their businesses. And I asked you, how come it seems to favor the investors, but then businesses, pre-existing businesses in the country, are about to say, hey, we can't continue this way?
Look, the end goal of the harmonization is not to favor investors. It's just to ensure a fair pricing of the currency. Because you can't get a situation whereby there's that huge disparity between your official market and your parallel market. So what you are creating is more like a round tripping for people to take advantage of. And that's one of the reasons why foreign investors are not coming. Foreign investors are not part of whether at what rate they are coming. They just want to come in at a level where they know that your currency is stable. And that's one of the things that necessitated the reasons why government actually harmonized the window. And another thing I feel that the government did not do right in that regard is that I think before they take that boat step, you should have checked in out to ensure that you are in order around that. And I think they actually dropped ball in that regard. The government was looking at our reserve around about 34 to 35 billion dollars, and you feel that harmonizing the window and having a reserve of close to about 35 billion, you have capacity to actually provide liquidity. And sincerely speaking, when that was done, for like 2 months, we saw that improvement. We saw the parallel market trading in line with the official window until when JP Morgan released a report around the fact that what we are seeing in reserve is not a true reflection of our reserve, and that what we have in reserve was just about 3.5 billion. So it simply means that what we have been projecting as about 35 billion is not the true value of what we have as reserve, because some of those funds were heavily encumbered. So it doesn't necessarily belong to you, because when the obligation crystallizes, at the end of the day, it will impact our reserve. So immediately that happened, the aftermath of that news was the fact that a lot of people lost confidence in the currency. A lot of people lost confidence in the fact that it means that the central bank will not have that muscle to actually provide the necessary liquidity. And that was the beginning of another turn of where we now found ourselves. Because between then and December, we saw the movement from around 750 naira to around 8,000 naira at the end of December. And as of February this year, we touched as high as 8,900 naira before we revert back to 8,100 naira. And that's from where we are moving gradually onto where we are currently.
Okay. Oladipo, let me just get your perspective as regards, of course, you've talked about it, but then when we look at the fact that, food inflation, or food as it were, has actually been one of the things that has increased the inflation figures. We're already talking about 32.70%, and the fact that the government has done what it feels it can do to develop that particular sector, or to actually improve on our supply chain. But then we've not really seen that happen in terms of the price people have to spend and the availability of the or the volumes of commodity that Nigerians will need for domestic consumption. How do you feel about this, and what do you think the way out should be?
Well, like I said, Jacob, I think the government is more reactionary than proactive, and that's one of my greatest concerns, because when government is actually it's now that the government is looking at how to find a way to actually reduce costs by actually maybe giving a rebate on imports, duties, and some of those things like that. I think these are things that the government should have done as early as the beginning of the year, when we start seeing inflation, the food inflation on the rise. And at the same time, sometimes I think in July there was a test of a train transportation from all the way from Kano to Lagos, actually conveying goods. And sincerely speaking, I expect by now that we should have gone beyond piloting some of those things. We should have come into full operation. Because that's one of the ways to actually cut costs. That's one of the ways to actually reduce costs. And because the prices we are seeing in markets is the function of the input cost with some of these producers. Our farmers will go to the market, to the farm to farm. Some of them, they need to pay bandage to actually assess their farm. Of course, currently the government is trying to actually do something better in that regard, sending the security operatives that are sent around food producing states, so as to actually give farmers opportunity to actually assess farm people. And I think that is laudable, but just what I said, that could have been done far before now, because we shouldn't have gotten to where we are now before actually now thinking of what do we need to do. And aside of what we produce locally, we also see the pass-through effect of FX. Look at where we were at January. The currency was at 990 naira. Now we are at 1,700. It tells you what would have happened. It simply means that if you are importing an input to production at a conversion of 900 at the beginning of the year, now you are importing it at the conversion of 1,700. Of course, you have to pass the cost to the final consumer, and that's some of the things we are also seeing on the street. And that's why you cannot even blame the retailer. You can't blame the producer as well, because what they are selling is a function of what they are buying. And sometimes I get worried when I see that the only thing we've been doing is actually applying monetary policy to aggressively, rather than looking at what is the supply effect of some of these things. The challenges of inflation, food inflation, is more of a supply side issue. It's not the demand side issue, like I say. Because when you look at the cost of production, it's on the rise. You can't use monetary policy to actually combat that. What will happen if you further exacerbate that? And that is what ended up happening if the fiscal policy guide is not rising up to the occasion. Okay. And I think, like I said, we need to do more in this regard so as to make life bearable for citizens.
Okay, Oladipo Ajayi, thank you so much for your contribution. I appreciate your contribution right here on the show.